Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Daily BizLink. Stacie Mallen is back again this week, and we're here to talk about the importance on focusing on hiring the best talent. Now more than ever, individuals are looking for their next career opportunity, and companies are now looking to try and fill those positions. So, Stacie, I'm really excited about this specific conversation and just hearing a little bit more about the conversations you've been having with local business leaders.
Yeah, I'll start with a little story. This is not the first time we've been through this cycle. I was in Silicon Valley working for a company, a startup in 1999, 2000, 2001. And I remember I went to a job fair right after the dot-com bust, the bubble burst. And there were supposed to be 400 employers there, and only four of us showed up. And to tell you that in my early 20s, I knew what to do with all of that humanity, sadness, and frustration, I did not. And I remember I tried to talk to as many of them as I possibly could. Many of them were losing their visas, and so they were desperate to find a new position. And we were hiring for three things at the time. So clearly I didn't have enough roles. I filled those three roles, but it's a good exercise. I had candidates lined like around, and when this happened again in the 06, 07, I remember jobbing.com, they used to have the big job fairs. Same thing, like there were just all these candidates and very few employers there when I was the head of talent for Caremark. And so we were there hiring, but just not at the level of need. So not a new problem. Long story short, this has happened before, and many of us have navigated through this. And I think many people think, hey, this is great, there's all this great talent. And that is true, that this could be a great opportunity for companies, but you're going to spend a lot of time sorting through people if you don't have a process in place. So the why, I always go like, why, what, how, like that's how I think about things. But the why here is, maybe the people that you would love to hire are available. And I think you said, Lindsay, when we were right before we started, but really awesome talent is still probably employed too. So it's not that everybody you're absolutely wanting is on the market. So now you're spending more time sorting through more candidates. It doesn't necessarily mean they're the right candidates. But also you have to be respectful of those people and their time, because those people need to have a good experience with you as an employer. So creates a variety of challenges.
So when we do receive all those applications and we're sifting through them, trying to identify who's the right fit for our organizations, what questions do we need to be asking?
Yeah, so one thing is be aware if you don't really have great alignment on your behaviors and values. So if you have values but you don't have identified behaviors, that's a step that you need to think about. Because when you're hiring for behaviors, you're hiring for capability. And again, now more than ever, as we talk about creating more diversity in our workforce, I would highly encourage you to have more conversations, cast a wide net and have more conversations than just what their resume is telling you. It's time consuming, but you're going to find better talent that way. How quickly do you need people to process information, for example? How rapidly does your culture move? If you move very rapidly, you can't tell that from a resume. And so until you really talk to people, it's hard to discern what is a great candidate for your organization. But once you get on the phone with them, if you haven't identified what behaviors you want to drive inside of your organization based on your value system and your purpose, for example, as one level set, you're not even going to know what to ask them. So I would highly encourage, this is the time, again, now more than ever, to take a step back and identify what are the things that you want to, who do you want to bring into your organization, and what behaviors do they demonstrate?
Now more than ever, I feel like businesses are changing the way that we, where we work, if we're working in the office or at home, and what that structure really looks like. And so, not only are we attracting talent for where we are today, but then also where we're moving towards in the future. So do you have any tips on how to help to further identify or qualify those individuals that will be the right fit for the long run?
Yeah, I have a strategy that I use with my clients, which is really I employ behavioral based interviewing or situational based interviewing. I believe it's the best way. Past behavior dictates future behavior. And Lindsay, you're a great salesperson. You know this. Salespeople, for example, are great interviewers because they can tell you all day long aspirationally what you want to hear. But what helps you identify the very best candidates are those candidates who are super quick on their feet, that can think about a situation in the past that's directly applicable to what they're asking you. It also measures fatigue, for example. So if you have several behavioral interviews back to back, the third or fourth interviewer is going to get the real story. Usually people wear down like over that time. And that sounds negative, but you're getting the very best person during an interview. That's as good as people get, right? It's like a first date. It's as good as you get. So having a process that helps you really get to the real person and how they react to stress and how they react to change and how they react as they go through that process is also very valuable. So as an example, behavioral based questions are those questions that start with, tell me about a time when, if you can give us a situation where you navigated blah, blah, blah. And what you're looking for is, and how you guide those interview questions is, give me the overall situation. So give me the broad based view. What was your role inside of that situation? What action did you take and what was the result? And so you have to help coach them through a few of those questions. But what you're going to get is very specific information on how they respond to stress, how they respond to collaboration, for example, different leadership styles, versus giving you just a creative opinion on how they may respond in the future, given what they think you want to hear.
So my last question, because I mean, I feel like I could ask you questions about this all day long. My last question for you is, we are now seeing people in the most authentic version of themselves and in their work environments. People are balancing the home life and with the work life. And so you may see that in the interview process, especially if you're doing that virtually or over Zoom. I think it's given us a lot of perspective and made us a little bit more compassionate and understanding of individuals. But how much of that should be factored into the interview process as we're navigating COVID-19 and, working from home and whatnot?
Yeah, I think it's really good for a lot of reasons. One is, when someone knows they're going to be on a Zoom, what decisions do they make? Where do they set up their camera? It's kind of a tell, right? How much thought process do they put into? So if you're hiring, for example, a position that's very process oriented, for example, and someone's got a mess behind the, I think where the decisions people make knowing they're going to be on an interview is a tell. And I think it's a good thing to think about. What you should not consider is, if they have kids that are in homeschool and they're authentic with you and tell you, hey, I have to tell you, and I would tell candidates to say this, I have to be honest with you. I wasn't, I only had about 24 hours notice, and my kiddos are on homeschool. And so I may have a little person walk into camera or a dog or barking or whatever. I think you're going to get more authenticity. And for me personally, in the organizations that I work with, that's what we want. We want the real person, and we want them to respond in an authentic way. And as leaders, I think we have to open our minds up to, is that who you want showing up for your customers and your team? I think it is. I think you want people who are real and authentic and vulnerable. And if they're willing to do that, I think that is a great measure of how people will show up for you when they come to work. And I think that, again, what you have to set aside is your own bias. Be aware of your own bias in that situation, on what conclusions you may draw from that. That is really critical to be aware of, I think.
Stacie, thanks again for joining us for today's conversation focused on the importance of hiring the best talent right now.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.